Emily and Jack had been together since their college days. They had met in the university library, both reaching for the same book on modern art, and had laughed at the coincidence. That was the beginning of what Emily had thought was a perfect love story. Over the years, their bond had grown strong. They shared dreams, challenges, and countless late-night conversations. Everyone around them admired their relationship. Friends often said Emily and Jack seemed like soulmates, destined to spend their lives together. After graduation, Emily had taken a job at a local publishing firm, and Jack had started a career in marketing. They moved into a cozy two-bedroom apartment on Maple Street, decorated with framed photos of their travels and candid moments. For the first few years, life seemed seamless. They celebrated anniversaries with candlelit dinners, weekends were for spontaneous road trips, and even mundane chores felt like shared adventures. But slowly, subtle cracks began to appear. Emily noticed Jack spending longer hours at work, returning home late, often exhausted and distant. Conversations that once lasted hours now dwindled to brief exchanges about bills or dinner plans. Emily brushed it off at first, thinking it was stress or fatigue. She reminded herself that every relationship had its challenging phases. Still, a lingering unease grew in her heart, one she couldn't quite shake. One rainy evening, as the gray clouds pressed against the windows of their apartment, Emily decided to tidy the study. Jack had stepped out for a meeting, leaving the apartment unusually quiet. She moved piles of paperwork and books, humming softly to herself. Her hand brushed against an envelope tucked beneath a stack of old bills. Curiosity got the better of her. The envelope was unmarked, and Emily hesitated for a moment before opening it. Inside were photos of Jack with another woman. At first, Emily thought her eyes were playing tricks on her, but as she examined them, the reality hit her like a lightning bolt. There was no mistaking it. Jack had been seeing someone else. Shock, disbelief, and a sense of betrayal flooded her all at once. Her hands trembled, and she sank onto the chair, trying to process the images. How long had this been going on? Who was this woman? And why had Jack lied to her? When Jack returned later that evening, Emily confronted him immediately. Her voice trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes. Jack's initial reaction was one of surprise, followed by awkward silence. He couldn't meet her gaze. The confession came slowly. Jack admitted to a brief affair that had started months ago, fueled by loneliness and work pressures. He claimed it wasn't about Emily, that it was a mistake, but Emily couldn't hear anything past the pain that gripped her heart. The nights that followed were the hardest. Emily found herself lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of their life together. She questioned every laugh, every shared secret, wondering if they had been genuine or just a facade. Friends and family noticed the change in her. She had always been vibrant and full of life, but now her smile was rare, her laughter hollow. Still, she leaned on her support system, her sister, her closest friends, her parents, who reminded her of her strength and worth. Weeks turned into months. Emily struggled with the decision of whether to confront Jack further or to focus on herself. She realized that no matter what happened between them, she needed to heal. Slowly, she began to take small steps. She reconnected with hobbies she had long neglected, painting, running, and even baking. She spent weekends exploring the city, visiting museums, and taking long walks in the park. Each day, she reminded herself that her identity and happiness were not dependent on anyone else. During this period, Emily also found solace in her work. At the publishing firm, she was assigned a new project, editing a series of inspiring memoirs. Immersing herself in stories of resilience and triumph gave her a sense of purpose. She realized that while she couldn't control what Jack had done, she could control her response. She could reclaim her life and rebuild her sense of self-worth. Emily and Jack's conversations became rare, but when they did speak, it was practical, about bills, groceries, or logistics. The emotional connection they once shared had dissolved, replaced by polite distance. Emily stopped seeking validation from Jack. Instead, she sought it from within. She journaled her thoughts every night, capturing the waves of emotion she felt, and gradually, the sharp edges of her pain softened. A turning point came one sunny afternoon. Emily had decided to take a solo trip to the countryside for a weekend retreat. She stayed in a small cabin by a lake, where she spent her days hiking, reading, and reflecting. One morning, as she sat on the wooden dock watching the sunrise, she felt a strange sense of clarity. The betrayal, though still painful, no longer had the power to define her. She realized that life was too short to remain trapped in resentment. Healing, she understood, was her choice. Returning to the city, Emily began to envision a future beyond the shadows of betrayal. She enrolled in a weekend photography class, where she met a group of enthusiastic peers who shared her passion for creativity. She laughed more freely, spoke openly, and discovered that she could trust people again, not blindly, but with careful discernment. Months later, Emily found herself in a small cafe, sipping tea and journaling her thoughts. She reflected on the past year, the heartbreak, the pain, and the growth. She had learned to forgive herself for any perceived failures in the relationship. She had learned to set boundaries, to prioritize her own well-being, and to embrace the possibility of joy again. While the scars of betrayal remained, they no longer dictated her life. Jack, for his part, attempted to reconnect, but Emily had changed. She no longer relied on him for emotional support. Their paths had diverged, and Emily embraced that reality with calm acceptance. She understood that closure wasn't about reconciliation. It was about finding peace within herself. By the end of the year, Emily had transformed her life. She moved to a new apartment filled with sunlight and fresh flowers, symbolizing her fresh start. She continued her career, nurtured meaningful friendships, and traveled whenever she could. Each experience reminded her of her resilience. The woman who had once felt broken now walked with quiet confidence, aware of her worth, and unafraid of the future. Emily's journey was not easy. There were nights of tears, moments of doubt, and days when the weight of betrayal seemed unbearable. But through it all, she discovered a strength she hadn't known existed. She realized that heartbreak, while painful, could also be transformative. It taught her empathy, patience, and the importance of self-love. Looking back, Emily understood that her love for Jack had been real, but so was the necessity to let go. She carried no bitterness, only lessons learned and the knowledge that she deserved happiness. Life, she discovered, was not about clinging to what was lost, but about embracing what was possible. And so, Emily stepped into the next chapter of her life with hope. The pain of betrayal became a catalyst for growth, and her broken heart, once heavy and fragile, had emerged stronger, wiser, and full of possibilities. She knew that the future was hers to shape, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly